Hey guys, I'm here to get into Woman in the Dunes, which was released in the year 1964, directed by Hiroshi Teshigahara. This is easily my favorite project of his. I first saw this when I was about 20. I saw this about 3 or 4 times in that time span, and I don't think I'd really seen it much since, maybe one other time. But I'm really obsessed with the influence this film has laid on me, which is just a very intense psychological drama with a lot of like horror, but it really feels like it's kind of perfect middle ground between a lot of Billy Wilder and Stanley Kubrick. It feels like Billy Wilder in the essence of you're going through a strange journey that you seems like a character would want to reject almost the entire way through, but it almost observes how, in the spiritual essence, the character kind of like prefers to be in this, and it's almost just like the world building is kind of complementing that his outlook on the whole thing. Like a lot of tension, where it's like he kind of struggles all throughout. It's like he's been kind of trapped in this position, and he wants to break through all the way through. But it's almost like I think the overall philosophy is like the more he breaks away, the more it strikes him back to haunt him more later. So it's like he might as well embrace it. What he's found, it's like again just finding something that's too strange, maybe too relatable, too resonating to a person along their journey. And again, this guy just exploring and out in the middle of the desert, he just finds this place, and it just kind of feels like it's just a very mind-bending depiction. This is actually very insane what this film is doing. It very much feels horrific. The soundtrack and cinematography makes this film particularly terrifying, as I've never seen more singing photography in my entire life, honestly. Even the Dune films, like this is like kind of in Lawrence of Arabia, this is like some of the most intensely detail-oriented depiction of sand I've ever seen, to a very intimidating extent. It actually makes it feel extremely disturbing. Just because, like, again, like an avalanche could happen to anyone. Like it's literally just like a trapping, like thing that just kind of it just causes unfortunate scenarios to happen for characters along the way. And again, I can't stress enough how perfect the soundtrack is. It actually literally does remind me a lot of The Shining, as well as, again, the story reminds me a lot of Sunset Boulevard. So it's just on this interesting balance of those two perspectives, as if like David Lynch were directing it. But this is from a Japanese New Wave perspective, so this is just really ahead of its time. And again, it kind of just like almost just, again, it's a little ridiculous the way the story's told. It's definitely over the top, a little satirical, but it ultimately looks at like this, again, this whole scenario, it seems like you want to run away from it, but the contradiction is, well, this is everything all a person needs. It's almost like a simplicity of it's all he needs ultimately. So he ends up just sticking with this, and it just ends up being like this strange realization, all these strange realizations he sort of realizes all the way through, as he just surrenders to acceptance as opposed to just running away from a dominating force, like, as this film kind of depicts. And he's like kind of awoken to a lot of it. He meets all these strange like villagers along the way. There's always a risk that a character could fall victim of just like, again, just anything in the unpredictable atmosphere, like just kind of quicksands everywhere. Like just it's really terrifying being out this much open and sanded as this world building depicts. And again, it gets like very sensual at times too. Like again, it's like almost like I wouldn't call this erotic at all, but it does get very close up on a lot of sensual moments between characters, and to a very uniquely disturbing extent, to a point where it's like, wow, that feels very haunting. It's very close up. You could see in a lot of ways where this is just like a very intimidating place to be, but it's an ultimately masterful one as well. Like an existential prison, you could say. This character thrives on living in an existential prison. Some creatives are like that. I think I've realized I surrender myself to being a bit like that. Like surrendering yourself to a creative prison is like, and not being hopelessly depressed about it. Maybe the character is questioning if this is too depressing the whole way through, and that's what he's running away from. But he realizes, well, there's just a way of perceiving all of this as an artist, you could say, which is just to fully appreciate the beauty and absurdity of it all, and like let the overwhelming sense of logic go, and let the sensuality overflow and go into your art and personality in time. It's like I think the film really is kind of maybe saying something about satirical about maybe just like over the top striving in a lot of ways, and it just kind of says it's best to just go with things. Very paranoid. Very claustrophobic, you could say. The sand does really makes things extremely claustrophobic here, and it's really rooted deep into the subconscious to an extent that, it's like I actually feel exhausted after watching this. This is a particularly exhausting mood this film has about it. It's a revelation. I'm obsessed with this soundtrack. I haven't watched it in almost a decade. I still feel like I just can remember all this like it's yesterday, because it strikes such a loud chord. I'm just stunned by this film's existence. Very ahead of its time, very surreal scenario to go through, and it just, I've never been a screenplay recital. Oh man, that'll hit big time now, I think, because this just gets better and better with age. This goes strongly recommended for something completely groundbreaking and original at all times.